Hello, my loves, and welcome to yet another episode of Strange Playgrounds. Now, this is quite late in coming because quite a lot has happened in the interim between me being asked the question that inspired this video, and now a lot has happened. A lot of really, profound, powerful, life-changing stuff, bereavement, loss, all this stuff has happened. And it's been very interesting. I mean, I always find moments of profundity in life to be utterly consumptive. Like they completely envelop and break us down, certainly from my own experience, to the point whereby it shudders us in our preconceptions, in our contexts of what life is. Everything stops. There's like an inertia. It's like the carriage stops or slows down suddenly, and it gives us pause to look at things in new context. So I had a fairly powerful bereavement recently. Someone who was very, very, very close to me. My grandfather passed away. Wasn't a shock because he was very old. He was like 93, I think, maybe even older, and had been on a downward spiral for quite a long time, owing to a very particular form of dementia. But even so, as it is in anyone's life, very powerful, very emotionally traumatic, simply because he was one of the most positive male influences in my life. And it's an interesting thing because when a parent or a grandparent dies, it changes the world for us. I mean, they are, for many of us, for the vast majority of us, they're kind of like linchpins. They're always there, They are just part of the environment. They're almost ambient. So their loss literally transforms the world for us. But it also, certainly for me, it had a certain effect of calcifying, I suppose, certain notions or ideas that I have with regards to death, old age, my own, what I want for myself. And I think this is not a selfish thing. I think these are the questions that such an experience should prompt us to have. It left me considering where I want to be when I get old, or if I even want to be. That is the more profound question, and it's something that we don't talk about in the UK at all. Death is like one of the great taboos, and we certainly don't talk about it, even though it's a universal experience. It's something we're all gonna have one way or another, and we have this sort of neurotic reaction to it. There aren't many spaces or arenas where you can actually discuss death and your own approach to it. And for me, death itself, the notion of death, holds no fear whatsoever. It is the notion of absence, of not being, doesn't trouble me because I am not going to care. When you are dead, you are dead. I am not, insofar as we're aware, there is likely, insofar as I can see, there is probably no continuation. I'm not pinning my hopes on the notion of a continuation after death. The notion of not existing doesn't trouble me at all, because I'm not going to be there to experience it or to appreciate it, so it doesn't matter. What does concern me is what I saw during my granddad's final days is indignity. That concerns me enormously. Indignity, pain, suffering, confusion, losing yourself, losing what you are, that concerns me enormously. And it's prompted me to consider what I want, what quality of life I am willing to put up with. And it's actually quite restrictive, I've got to say. I am not getting to that point. That's for damn sure. I mean, he was 93 years old. I'm not even sure I want to live that long. I'm not sure there's any benefit to living that long. For me, personally, it's got to be a personal decision, obviously. But for me, I'm not sure there would be any particular benefit to living that long. It doesn't particularly interest me to get to that point where getting up is a chore, where just existing is weary. And that was it for him towards the end. He was just very tired towards the end, very tired, and I'm not sure I want it. I'm not really sure I want it at all. But that's kind of a discussion for another time. I was actually asked a question when during a premiere of one of the videos I did with Elliot Chapman and Jack Graham. I can't quite remember which one it was, but I was asked about my writing work. It's an excellent question, because it's something that probably every writer, every creative person should ask of themselves. Was, what do you want to do with it? What is your purpose in writing at all? Regardless of what you write, what is your purpose? And it's a really good question, because it's asking you to make an analysis of your own motivations, and that is very tricky, almost impossible, I would say. You can give an idea of what you think they are, but you can't really look into yourself and see what the various different strands of influence and subconscious motivation are driving you to do something. I will say this, I can't not do it now. I've gotten into the point where if I don't do it, it has very profound psychological effects. It makes me feel terrible if I don't. I think one of the things it does, because I tend to write stories that are basically rakings of the subconscious, a lot of the swirling miasmic nightmare imagery and concerns that are buried in that ocean of the subconscious come boiling up to the surface and spill out onto the page. That's kind of what I do. It is a kind of therapy. It's a kind of almost exorcism. It gets those concerns and those images out onto the page, it expresses them, and it allows me to explore concerns that I may not be articulate or eloquent enough to explore in more documentary terms. I am definitely better at exploring these ideas in fictional, metaphorical, allegorical and symbolic terms than I am directly. I am not a documentarian as such. I'm not that good at writing like sort of essay, article style pieces, journalistic pieces, epistemological pieces, really. I'm not that good at that. I tend to find that I get very easily mired in that format and confused, and I lose the thread of what I'm doing, because from my perspective, and I realize this may be a failing on my own part, most of the things I try to talk about are irreducibly complex. And that is what I'm trying to express a lot of the time in my fiction. It's sort of like trying to wake people up to their own complexity, to the complexity of the inner world, which is something sacred, something that is so neglected and ignored and receded in our postmodern conditions, something that certainly UK culture does not feed and does not want us to experience. Our state of operation in the abstract, it doesn't want us turning eyes inward and developing a sense of an interior life. It doesn't want that from us, because in the present day UK life, we are functionaries. We are funneled through a neoliberal system. We are consumers and functionaries. We do what we're supposed to do, like good little workarounds, and then we conveniently die. That's what it really wants from us. It wants us to be an insect hive. It's so neglected. No, we are not given to think in those terms, or to experience in those terms, or to understand that we have an abstract life, like an anatomy that is as fundamental and significant to us as the one we can see and feel and which directly experiences. And I don't mean that in any sort of hairy-fairy spiritual or metaphysical terms. I don't mean it in those terms at all. I mean it quite literally literally in terms of the ideas and abstracts of ourselves, the myths of ourselves that we construct, that accrue, that are imposed upon us, that are ambiguous and swirling and contradictory. That is what interests me, and that is what I'm trying to express. It's this sort of like miasma of state and of perception and of imagination, of identity. That is something that I'm really trying to express in most of my work. It's the fluidity of identity, and how that is not something to be afraid of. That what we are enjoined to protect and to enshrine in our assumptions of self aren't worth protecting. It doesn't need protecting. We can happily dissolve and become something else, become something more, become something better, something more complex, something more elaborate or beautiful. We don't need to calcify or enshrine ourselves in what are effectively lunatic asylums or the tombs of self. We don't need to do that, even though almost every aspect of culture enjoins us to do so. You are supposed to be defined. You are this class, this is your job, so you are this, This is what you're supposed to aspire to because you were born in this place and this part of the country, to this particular class, to this culture. No, fuck that. Absolutely fuck that. I kind of often hold myself and many of my friends and associations up as evidence of this. Almost all of us are born from working class households, and almost all of us are working class now. Almost every single one of us are working class now. But that does not mean that we don't have these experiences, and in a very profound way. It doesn't mean that we don't have these interior lives. It doesn't mean that we don't have these conceptions throughout our daily experience of existence. It's just that we're enjoying not to. And what I really want is to break through that. I want to break through that calcification. I want to shatter the shell or the fishbowl. I want people to understand that it's not pretentious, that it is their place to have these experiences as well. It is not confined to some preconception or societal prescription of art or academia or philosophy or whatever. This belongs to us all. And even though for most of us, for the vast majority of us, it is withered, it is recessed, it is something that is actively stamped down on so we don't experience it. Because believe you me, the moment you start exploring those notions, the moment you turn the eye inward and you start looking at these concepts, at the experience of your own internal life, you start to understand the hideousness of the systems that be, of tradition, of our established structures of privilege and of history and of tradition, the way things work. You start to understand that they are bullshit, that they are ludicrous, asinine, cancerous bullshit that tradition has imposed upon us. And there are better ways. You start to realize utopian ideals. That's the basis of it. You start to develop conceptions of better ways of being, whether it's personal, whether it's regards to who you are, or whether it's regards to wider humanity and culture and society. And it's something that, though society as it stands doesn't want you to do, it just doesn't want you to do. It diminishes that in us. It actually tries to shame and educate you out of it. It tells you that it's childish to talk to, or that it's unseemly to talk to yourself, for example. And I find that bizarre. In our culture, certainly in the UK, talking to yourself is regarded as a sign of lunacy, and I don't understand that. I talk to myself all the fucking time, sometimes out loud, and sometimes out of doors, sometimes in public, and I don't understand how you can start to develop a relationship with yourself, with your internal self, if you don't do that. I don't understand it. And it seems to me that the way our cultures have evolved and the way that they've congealed is that they actively try to stop you from doing that, to shame you out of it, because allowing you to do so would mean that you and more widely, culture itself would start to change. The status quo would start to shift. And that's kind of what I'm trying to enjoin with my work. Most of my writing is about the interior life. Almost all of it, in fact, to some degree or another. I mean, it's not something that's often conscious. It is exploring my own experience in that regard, but it is an expression of the world that I see, of the humanity that I see. And the pitiable, horrific circumstances in which we find ourselves. I mean, I find being out amongst humanity very difficult. I really do, because what I see for the most part are creatures that are brilliant and beautiful, or that could be brilliant and beautiful, that probably have had at some point in their lives the most amazing interior experiences, the most profound metamorphoses and transcendences and revelations, but aren't allowed to express them, or have been shamed out of experiencing them to their fullest and allowing them to change us and transform us, right? They've been commercialized, they've been packaged, they've been reduced. I mean, we do it with even the most profound things we all experience. The sexual experience, the sexual experience, love, our connection to other human beings, all of these things are diminished in our cultures. They are reduced to these commercialized experiences where they're all about what can be marketed from the experience, and how can the experience itself be reduced so that it is not powerful and profound, and so that it doesn't change us. It just becomes part of the wallpaper. It just becomes part of the environment. Oh, this is what people do. No, the sexual I mean, I can only speak for myself. I can't get into your skulls and sort of explore it with you, or what it means to you. But I know for me, even like the most casual sexual experience has been amazingly profound. It has changed me fundamentally. I do believe, like a good book or like a good story, a sexual experience, if it is just this disposable, perfunctory thing, then it's pointless. For me personally, it's utterly pointless. And that doesn't, and I'm not talking about, by the way, casual experiences in that regard. Casual experiences can be wonderful. They can be amazing. They can be more profound than, like, for example, the married couple that have been having sex for years, and now it's just not part of what they do, or it's not enjoyable to them anymore. It can be more profound than that. It depends on the individuals interacting within the experience and what they take from it. But I don't understand the notion of the sexual experience as a disposable thing, as almost like a fast food style thing. But that's what culture wants of us. That's what it wants us to regard it as. And I don't, like, even within, like, the structures that it enshrines, like, for example, monogamous marriage, it still wants to reduce that experience. Marriage itself has been reduced to this commercialized thing where it's a fucking industry, despite the profundity of it. And I find that repulsive. I just find that utterly repellent. What I really want to do, you know what I want to do with my work? The true answer, I want to crack the world open. That's the truth of the matter. I want to take its mutilated, deformed skull, smash it against the sacrificial rock, and have its disease spill out for all to see. And then I want to fill it with something better. That's what I want to do. That's my aim. And I know that might seem like, I don't know, it might seem pretentious, it might seem like an ambition I'm never going to realize. I don't particularly care about that. But yeah, that's what I want to do. I want metaphysical revolution. That's what my writing is an expression of. That's what I want. I want to wake humanity up to itself. I want humanity to be aroused to itself in every conceivable way. I want it to understand the systems that diminish it and that make it into something plastic and synthetic and disposable. And then to show those systems that we're not that we are better than that we are more than that we are these broiling wells of chaotic uncertainties and confusions and drives and inspirations and conflicting protean identities. That's what I want. That's what I want to do with my work. And whether I achieve that or not is up to the individual reader, really. That's the basic answer.